It's the most restricted library in the world. 85 kilometers of shelving, 12 centuries of secrets. Buried beneath Vatican City lies a vault known as the Archivum Secretum Apostolicum Vaticanum. Only a handful have ever entered. Even fewer understand what it hides. Tonight, we walk down the marble corridor where truth was sealed and history was rewritten. Behind those walls are files older than nations, letters between emperors and popes, papal decrees that shaped wars, and testimonies from men condemned as heretics. Every shelf is a timeline of power, written, hidden, and preserved under divine order. But some stories never made it to the pages of Scripture. Some truths were buried for fear they might unmake the faith that built the world. For centuries, rumors whispered of lost gospels, forbidden experiments, and papal alliances that reached into kingdoms and empires. The Church says these are lies, misunderstandings born from curiosity. But secrecy leaves shadows, and shadows invite questions. What lies sealed beneath the Vatican isn't just history, it's the blueprint of control. Because if knowledge is power, then whoever decides what can be known decides what must be forgotten. Welcome to the Vatican's secret archives. What the Church doesn't want you to see.
You're now entering declassified ages, where history isn't written, it's exposed.
The Vatican's secret archives. The name alone sounds like fiction, but they are real. A labyrinth of chambers beneath Vatican City, sealed by iron gates and papal authority. For centuries, the Church denied their existence. Then, when they finally admitted it, they changed the name. From Secretum to Vatican Apostolic Archive. They said it was a mistranslation, that Secretum simply meant private. But privacy and secrecy are not the same thing. Privacy protects, secrecy conceals. The archive contains over 12 centuries of documentation, correspondence between popes and monarchs, treaties that divided continents, and the original minutes of trials that shaped civilization itself. Yet less than 1% of it has ever been seen by outsiders. The rest remains locked away, guarded by the Holy See's own archivists, men bound by vows of silence and obedience. To enter, you must hold a doctorate, prove your research aligns with Church interests, and submit every page you request for approval. Even then, what you're given may not be what you asked for. Whole sections are missing, dates redacted, names erased. Historians say that for every document released, a dozen are quietly withheld. But it's not what's preserved that haunts researchers, it's what's been removed. Whispers tell of letters between the Vatican and the Third Reich, discussions of silence in exchange for survival, of reports on Galileo's final confessions, carefully rewritten to soften the Church's image, and of sealed testimonies from the Inquisition, men burned as heretics whose words were too dangerous to destroy, but too revealing to share. The Vatican insists these are falsehoods, misreadings by the curious, exaggerations by the secular. But if that were true, why protect them so fiercely? Why hide the truth beneath a city built on faith? Every scholar who has entered describes the same sensation, the weight of centuries pressing down from the stone above. Each page smells of dust and incense, each signature a reminder that power once required only parchment and belief. In these halls, history isn't written, it's curated. And curation, at this scale, becomes control. Because whoever decides what the world remembers also decides what the world forgets. And within those forgotten margins lies the beginning of the Vatican's greatest secret. The Vatican has survived empires, revolutions, and reformations, not because it was always righteous, but because it was always informed. Knowledge is power, and for the Church, knowledge became an empire of its own. For more than 1,000 years, popes, cardinals, and their secretaries collected the letters, treaties, and confessions of kings. Every alliance, every betrayal, every whispered threat, copied, sealed, and archived beneath St. Peter's Basilica. When kingdoms fell, their records burned. When governments collapsed, their files vanished. But the Vatican endured, the silent witness to every political storm. Historians say the archives aren't just a collection of documents. They are a map of influence, a record of every debt ever owed to the Church and every secret the Church ever kept. Among its shelves lie the papers of Galileo, the man condemned for saying the earth moves around the sun. For centuries, his trial transcripts were locked away. The Church called it a matter of doctrinal discretion. But when they were finally released, they revealed the truth. Galileo had been forced to recant under threat of torture, a moment the Church preferred the world to forget. Another file contains letters from 1939, when the Vatican maintained diplomatic ties with Nazi Germany. Historians still debate whether the Church's silence during the Holocaust was complicity or caution. The documents that could answer that question remain sealed under papal authority. And then there's the correspondence from the Inquisition. Handwritten confessions of those accused of heresy. Many of them were tortured into admitting sins they never committed. Their statements survive, bound in crimson leather, preserved as evidence of righteousness, evidence that was never meant to be questioned. To the faithful, the archives represent preservation, a sacred trust between the Church and history. But to critics, it's a fortress of control, a place where truth is negotiated, where facts bend to serve faith. The Church argues it protects these records for the sake of continuity, to preserve the spiritual history of humanity. But the deeper you go into those marble halls, the harder it becomes to tell preservation from censorship. Every sealed file whispers the same question. Who decides what humanity is ready to know? The Vatican's authority doesn't rest only in its theology. It rests in its monopoly on the past. If history itself can be redacted, then so can morality. Because faith built on secrecy demands belief without evidence. And that is the purest form of power. To convince the world that some truths are too sacred to see. Not everything inside the Vatican archives can be verified, but what cannot be verified can still be whispered. And over time, those whispers become something far more dangerous. They become legends. Some say, hidden among the indexed files and parchment rolls, there are documents that never officially existed, files too explosive to catalog, too heretical to destroy. One of them is known as the chronovisor, a rumored device said to have been built in the 1950s by a Benedictine monk named Pellegrino Ernetti. According to the legend, it could see into the past, a machine that captured echoes of time, allowing its users to witness Christ's crucifixion, Napoleon's coronation, and events lost to centuries of decay. The Vatican has never confirmed its existence, but when asked directly, they didn't deny it either. Their response was simple. No such device is currently in use. Currently, a single word that keeps the myth alive. Then there are the sealed prophecies of Fatima, messages said to have been delivered by the Virgin Mary to 3 shepherd children in Portugal in 1917. 2 were made public. The 3rd was locked away. When it was finally released in 2000, the Church claimed it foretold an attack on a bishop in white. But many believe the real text remains hidden, a warning about corruption within the Church itself, a prophecy that could shatter the foundations of Vatican authority if ever revealed. Another rumor speaks of a letter written by Pope Leo XIII in 1884, after he claimed to have heard a conversation between God and Satan. In it, the devil allegedly boasts that he could destroy the Church from within if given 100 years. The Pope fainted immediately after hearing the vision. That letter, too, they say, is stored beneath the Vatican, filed under restricted classification. Then there are the darker claims. Documents detailing the Church's connection to ancient secret orders, occult societies, and hidden councils that allegedly influenced the Crusades, European monarchies, and even modern political movements. There's no proof these files exist, but the Vatican's refusal to deny them only deepens the mystery. Inside one of the restricted catalogs, identified by researchers as Series B, there are files referenced but never described. Their titles translated loosely as On the Trial of Spirits and Concerning the Night of Fire. No one outside the Curia has ever seen them. Their contents are classified as sub rosa, Latin for under the rose, a term once used by secret societies to mean this stays hidden forever. The closer historians get to the truth, the more they encounter deliberate gaps, missing years in papal correspondences, misnumbered shelves, and burned inventory ledgers. It's as if entire decades were carefully erased from humanity's record of itself. And perhaps that's the point. The Vatican's greatest strength isn't what it reveals. It's what it withholds. The Church calls this discretion, but history might call it manipulation. Because for every legend denied, there's another that survives. And in those silences, between what's recorded and what's forbidden, lies the real story of power. Power isn't always taken. Sometimes it's protected. For centuries, the Vatican has stood as both a spiritual beacon and a political fortress. But its true power has never rested solely in faith. It lies in the control of knowledge. Every empire eventually falls. But the Church, unlike any other, built a system to outlive collapse by keeping history itself captive. Consider this. When Galileo faced trial in 1633, his crime wasn't simply heresy. It was curiosity. He dared to say what the stars had already revealed, that Earth was not the center of the universe. The Vatican silenced him, and for 300 years, his trial documents were buried in the archives, not destroyed, preserved, as if to remind future generations who decides what truth looks like. That pattern repeats itself. From the censored letters of Martin Luther to diplomatic exchanges during World War II, the Church has always known. Information is the first and last weapon of authority. Yet, there's something paradoxical about it. For every secret they guard, there's also a devotion behind it. A belief that some truths are too sacred, too dangerous, too destabilizing for the human soul to bear. Maybe, in their eyes, they're not hiding evil. They're protecting faith. Because what happens when the myths that bind billions turn out to be history's greatest cover stories? There's a phrase often found carved into the stone corridors of Rome: custodes veritatis, keepers of truth. But inside the Vatican's underground vaults, truth isn't always kept. Sometimes it's rewritten. If the archives truly hold the secrets of humanity's past, lost gospels, forbidden sciences, the real story of Christ's bloodline, or the Church's political deals, then opening those doors wouldn't just challenge the Church, it would challenge civilization itself. Because truth, once freed, doesn't return quietly. It burns through illusion, and what it leaves behind is rarely holy. Maybe that's why the marble doors remain locked, not out of fear of discovery, but fear of understanding. Because the question isn't what the Vatican hides from us, it's what it hides for us. Centuries of whispers, thousands of locked boxes, and one question that still echoes through time. What is the Vatican really protecting? Every door inside the archives leads deeper, not just underground, but into the layers of history itself. Each corridor is a boundary between what the world knows and what it was never meant to. Some say within those walls lies evidence of a church divided, gospels that tell a different story of Christ, letters revealing alliances with kings and tyrants, records of exorcisms and rituals long erased from doctrine. Others believe it hides the Church's greatest confession, that faith has always been less about revelation and more about control. But maybe the greatest secret of all isn't what's inside the archives. Maybe it's the world outside them. Because the truth doesn't just live in locked rooms. It lives in what we choose not to question. Every myth we accept. Every document we never demand to see. Every silence we mistake for peace. The Vatican's secret archives remain closed, but perhaps they don't need to open. Perhaps the real archive is us. Our memories, our obedience, our willingness to believe without seeing. For 400 years, the Church has guarded its truths behind stone and shadow. But time is the one archivist they can't control. And eventually, every secret faces the light. Maybe, in the end, the Vatican's greatest secret isn't what it keeps locked away, but how long the world has chosen not to ask. Declassified Ages, where history reveals its secret. Like, share, and subscribe.